Hello there and welcome back to some more Forza Top Gear Laps. Today we're taking a look at Creator's Choice. These are some of my highlights from the car list of Forza Motorsport 7 brought around the track for you today. We begin with the 1997 Lotus Elise GT1, 350 horsepower, 295 foot-pound torque, 2,425 pounds of weight. This is the lightest car we are featuring today, and it is one of 5 of the GT1 homologation specials that we have in the game. The others include the Porsche 911 GT1 Stratus version, CLK GTR, the Nissan R390 and the McLaren F1 GT, along with this of course. This is the least powerful of all of them, by quite a fair ways actually. The R390 is the second least powerful of that lot, I believe, and that has 550 horsepower, so yeah, this one is rather down on power. Of course, this is the road car, which just features the Esprit's V8 twin-turbo that it had at the time. While it may be down on power, however, there is no questioning that this car's, well, decentness. In fact, it's better than decent. It is absolutely bloody superb. If you ask me how a car should drive, this is exactly how it should drive. It is phenomenal. It has so much grip, it is unreal. Now, there are a few issues. The gearbox, for example, a little bit sort of laggy compared with today's sort of fast switching gearboxes, but other than that, there is nothing I can complain about other than it being a bit slow in the gearbox. This car is phenomenal. Great brakes, great handling. I love the rear end grip. This is how every car should drive. Next up, 2013 Dodge Viper GTS, 640 horsepower, 600 foot-pound torque, 3,296 pounds of weight. This is the most powerful and most torquey car here today. This is my actual personal favourite generation of the Dodge Viper, the last gen Viper. I think it's the best looking, and also in terms of performance it is the outright best, save for maybe the ACR, but this version also has an ACR version, but we'll speak more about that in the coming weeks. Yes, I do adore the Dodge Viper, and this particular last generation model really appeals to me. 8.4 litre V10 engine, sounds fantastic, it's as nutty as you'd expect, and the Vipers have always proven to be pretty darn good cars to drive, and this one is no exception. It is bloody great to drive, this car. Does feel a little bit soft, a little bit sort of almost wallowy. I came straight out the Elise GT1 into this, and it definitely feels slower in terms of its sort of handling. The Elise GT1 is rather darty compared to this, but still, it is just so easy to drive because of that. The Elise GT1 is actually slightly harder to drive than this Viper, I'd say. Sure, the tail end kicks itself out on the Viper sometimes, but it's really controllable when it does so. It's just a really nice, easy, almost relaxing car to drive, which you'd never expect to say about a Dodge Viper, but that is really how it drives. Next up, not so relaxing to drive. This is the 1995 Porsche 911 GT2, my personal favourite of all of the Porsche 911s. 424 horsepower, 398 foot-pound torque, 2,855 pounds of weight. While those figures today don't sound particularly exciting, I mean, the modern day 911 GT2 is pushing out almost 700 horsepower. This is a 1995 car, and those figures back in the day were rather quick. This is a fantastic looking car, if you ask me. It looks great with its sort of stock wide body stance. I love the 993 generation, and the GT2 really is the cream of the crop for me. Of course, the last of the air-cooled Porsche 911s, the last of the really old school Porsche 911s. This was still when the engine was pretty far in the back, and as a result of that, it drives as you'd expect an old school Porsche 911 to do. The front end likes to lift up, the acceleration is quite good, the rear end is always pushing down. It is a rather interesting bit of kit to drive, certainly. I wouldn't say it's bad. I would say it keeps you very, very awake though. It's not like sort of the Viper or even the Elise GT1 where you can sort of relax while you drive this. You have to focus. One saving grace of the GT2 is though that it does actually have surprisingly good brakes for a car its time, but yeah, it is a rather mental piece of machinery. But if you wanted to relax, you could always buy one of these. This is, well, you can't actually buy these because they were a locked car, but never mind. 2004 Ferrari 612 Scaglietti, 552 horsepower, 454 foot-pound torque, 4,112 pounds of weight. This is the heaviest car here today. Now, when people speak about their favourite Ferraris, you may hear the Tessa Tosser, the F40, the F50, stuff like that. Me personally, this is actually my second favourite of all of the Ferrari models. My first favourite is always going to be the 575M. I adore that thing, but the 612 is up there. I personally think it actually looks pretty cool, and I just sort of like the whole thing behind this car. It is a luxury barge, and I do quite like that. about the 612. Some people may say it's ugly, but for me personally, I think it does look rather nice. The 612, as far as it goes to drive, well, it weighs 4,112 pounds. This is not a track car. There is no way around that, you know. This isn't going to handle like a Ferrari. It is very heavy, but it is decent, you know. When I first drove this at Yas Marina, it did feel very, very wallowy, but since then, driving it around here, it actually felt pretty nice. Rather secure, just another almost easy car to drive. You kind of drift off the track occasionally. The handling isn't going to save you in this one. It will understeer a little bit, but yeah, it is a solid car nonetheless. Next up, a 2011 Subaru Impreza WRX STI sedan. This is the one people probably didn't expect me to go with. 305 horsepower, 290 foot-pound of torque, 3,384 pounds of weight. I haven't really spoke about this before, but I really like this particular model of the WRX. Of course, my least favourite is the hatchback. I hate the hatchback, but when you stick the boot on it, I actually do quite like the styling of this particular model, so much so that I'd probably say this is probably my third or fourth favourite of the WRXs. Of course, the Bug-Eye being my favourite, Hawkeye being second favourite, but this and the 2015 do trade places quite a lot when it comes to me. Now, as far as this particular model goes, little bit weird. This technically, I believe, is the least PI heavy of all of the Imprezas in the game. This one's only a mid-C class, and most of them are sort of top of C class. This one has a lot less torque than hatchback for some reason. I'm not quite sure why. It shaves about 30 foot-pound of torque off between the 2008 and the 2011 models. Not entirely sure why that is. As a result, as far as WRXs go, it does feel a little bit slower in a straight line, but that is like the only difference between this and a WRX. It handles exactly like a WRX. I've explained WRX handling before. It is basically really secure, really nice, a little bit of understeer, but other than that, solid, excellent car to drive. Yeah, it's sort of one of the more underrated of the Subars, probably the least used of all the Imprezas online, but personally I do rather like it. Next up, 1997 Volvo 850R. I couldn't do one of these without putting this in here. 240 horsepower, 221 foot-pound of torque, 3,230 pounds of weight. Now, I've discussed the 850R several times, and in my opinion, this is pretty much the perfect car for me. I love the 850R. It might be my favourite car of all time. It has a 5-cylinder turbo engine, which sounds fantastic. It is a wagon, which is fantastic. It's got wood paneling and leather, and oh, I love this thing so much. It is the perfect car. I adore the 850R. I also really like its sort of boxy styling. It's got a lot of charm to it, this particular vehicle. As far as the 850R goes to drive, in Forza it's sort of been a good car when tuned, however stock it's never been particularly good. I will say though, in Forza 7 it does actually seem to be pretty good. It is actually surprisingly agile for its size. It is one of the better front-wheel drive cars that I've actually driven so far in this game, stock. Sure, you do get a little bit of the differential spin. You'll sort of see the smoke pouring off the front tyres as it goes around corners and so on and so forth. That does happen a lot in sort of these older front-wheel drive cars, but it's not as noticeable when it comes to this car. The biggest issue with this car is the fact that they decided for whatever reason to add the American version of this car, which only came with a 4-speed automatic. The gearbox is hell in this car, but if you upgraded the gearbox, this would be a much better car. All you need to do, chuck out that gearbox and it becomes a whole new car. Next up, another front-wheel drive car, the 2000 Honda Prelude, a Type SH, 200 horsepower, 156 foot-pound torque, 3,042 pounds of weight. This is the least torquey car here today because it's a Honda. Yeah. The Prelude, always a car which I have rather liked. I'm much more of a Civic person, you know. I love the EK9. That was once my favourite car, but sort of the Volvo's way got up there now. But yeah, the EK9 is a car that I do rather like. But the Prelude is another one. These things are known for being really very darn good front-wheel drive chassis. Sure, you've got the Integra. Most people prefer the Integra over the Prelude. Me personally, I just prefer the bigger Prelude because it's a little bit more sort of luxury orientated, a little bit more daily drivable, I guess, and also I'd rather have a Civic over an Integra if you ask me personally. The Prelude, now when I went to drive this, I have built this car before and I was expecting it to be good. I wasn't expecting it to be as good as it was though. This is a fantastic front wheel drive chassis. As far as sort of the best driving front wheel drive cars I've driven at all in Forza, this is right up there. This is a solid car to drive. I really did quite like it. It's I mean, I'm not going to say it doesn't feel like it's front-wheel drive, but I always think that plays to its benefit, because I personally quite like driving front-wheel drive cars. There's barely any understeer in this. You can see the tyres spinning a little bit. You really do not notice that in the Prelude. It is just a really excellent front-wheel drive chassis. Not the quickest thing, but it's certainly a rather excellent. And we end, well, with one of my favourite American cars of all time, surprisingly enough, 1977 AMC Pacer, 120 horsepower, 212 foot-pound torque, 3,425 pounds of weight. This is the least powerful car we have here today. Surprising amount of torque, actually, in the Pacer. Yeah, I love the AMC Pacer. It's ridiculous, and it's unapologetic for being absolutely ridiculous. That's what I like about it. Absolutely fascinating story behind this car. If you haven't checked out the Auto Moments documentary on the AMC Pacer, I highly recommend giving that a search, because you'll find out just how much people really do love this little car. As much as I'd love to see the Ford Pinto in the game, I'm very happy to see the AMC Pacer making its triumphant return to a motorsport game. Well, I like it a lot in terms of its styling and its craziness and all the rest of it. I mean, driving experience, what do you expect? It is a 70s American car with no power. It weighs quite a lot. The way I've written it down on my piece of paper here is just saying it's not really fast enough to cause any issues. There might be issues with the handling on this car. You don't notice them because it's slow. It's got a 4-speed gearbox, which is long. Yeah, you can barely hear the engine actually in this car, which was rather impressive. It feels like the engine should have a lot more revs than it actually does, but yeah, of course this isn't the V8 model. They did make a V8 Pacer, which I would love to see in the game, ironically enough. The V8 Pacer wagon. That would be a dream DLC car, although I don't think they're going to add that once we've already got this Pacer, but yeah, it is cool nonetheless. Onto the leaderboard then, and the fastest car today in 18th place was the Lotus Elise GT1, a 1:15.901, a fantastic time, beats a bunch of modern Ferraris. It's only slightly slower than a modern day Acura NSX, which is rather phenomenal when you consider how old that car is. In 22nd place we find the Dodge Viper GTS with 1:16.477, again another phenomenally quick car, beats a modern day Nissan GTR, McLaren 570S, Lotus 211, really very solid time from that car. The 911 GT2 goes into 41st place with 1:19.708, squidging it right in between an Alfa Romeo 33 Stradale and a Chevrolet Camaro ZL1. Surprisingly quick time from the 911 considering its PI and also how unbelievably mental it was to drive. Moving down some more, we find the Ferrari 612 Scaglietti in 51st place with 1:21.573. It was never going to be hugely quick, but it did do surprisingly well. Beats out a Lotus Evora, tuned Mazda RX-7, Porsche 911 Turbo, Dodge Challenger Hellcat. A surprisingly good time from the 612, in fact. Moving down the board some more, in 77th place we'll find the 2011 Impreza WRX STI with a 1:25.958. Amusingly, it is a thousandth of a second off of an Evo 8. I joke you not, I was amazed when I got that lap time. Yeah, well, it might have a slightly worse time. Me personally, I did prefer driving the Impreza. In 104th place, we find the Honda Prelude Type SH with a phenomenal 1:30.959. It's quicker than a Mitsubishi Eclipse Super Legacy. Phenomenal time from the Prelude, and we'll have to see how fast that is as more cars go around the track. The Volvo 850R goes in 107th place with 1:31.884, beats out a Porsche 550 Spider, Lancia Fulvia. Again, considering the fact that that car's a wagon and has a 4-speed auto gearbox, yeah, that is a rather good time. And finally today, the AMC Pacer X goes into 126th place with 1:46.095, becoming the second slowest car we've ever had. It is slower than the Toyota Land Cruiser, which was the previous slowest car we've ever had. Can't say I'm surprised, but goddamn, the AMC Pacer still has a special place in our hearts. Anyways, I want to thank you all very much for watching this edition of Forza Top Gear Laps. Next time out, well, it's a secret for now, so join me next week to find out what it is. Thank you all very much for watching, and until next time, farewell.